Guys, are you ready for rapid fire?
Ooh, baby, let's go. Rapid fire on a
Right.
Friday.
Here we are. So Riley Leonard made an appearance at Dick's Sporting Goods today, right here in town. It was supposed to be a solo paid NIL appearance for Riley Leonard, but he said, hey, offensive lineman, come along. And he let the offensive lineman take the money. I guess they got, both payment in cash and gift cards for the appearance. What do you guys think of that?
I think Riley Leonard must be doing well in the NIL if he's already, passing along passing along his gifts to the offensive line. But I know he's got the one with Roback. I know he's got one with New Era. Him and Hannah Hidalgo, I'm pretty sure, are the New Era reps for Notre Dame. So, Riley Leonard, he's going to do just fine in the NIL. And I don't even think at the end of the day it matters to him, right? I think he is just grateful for the opportunity to be at Notre Dame. He's talked before about how he's, a man of Christ and that sort of stuff. And I think that goes a long way with him too, being able to play at, a university like Notre Dame and further, connect or get his connection with God. And so it's just a smart move if you're Riley Leonard, because that's the group who's protecting you. It's a young group. And how do you get them to buy in and trust you more? You say, hey, let's come along and take all my free gifts. And so I think it's really smart of Riley Leonard. And I think he's a natural leader. And that's ultimately what you need out of the quarterback position, what you need out of the quarterback position, specifically when you're trying to make a run like Notre Dame is this season. The more he can build, that trust amongst the offensive line, the better they're going to be. So I loved it. I think it was a total pro move, at the end of the day. It's like when the quarterbacks in the NFL buy their offensive linemen nice new watches or ATVs or, whatever it might be. While it's not, a new watch or anything, it's still something nice, and he didn't have to do it at the end of the day.
This is what quarterbacks have been doing since day one, taking them out for a steak dinner, giving them all the credit. Like, this is exactly what you do when you're a quarterback. That's called leadership. And everything Jesse said is correct, and it's accurate about all his NIL money and everything else. But even if he wasn't making all that money, this is what you do.
Yeah.
100%. Or you go and you take the money and then you take them out to eat. You know what I mean? Like, you get them involved. You show them you're appreciative. Like, it's leadership.
And a lot of times, like the NFL quarterbacks who you hear about doing it, wait until the end of the season and kind of give the lineman a bonus. I mean, this is perfect. Like, early season bonus from Riley Leonard, and just continue to get that buy-in. And all it's going to do is make those guys work harder for you at the end of the day to protect you. Riley Leonard knows where his bread is buttered. So good investment, and pretty cool to hear him doing that, taking the lineman out there. So Heather Dinich from ESPN, after last week's Notre Dame win over Texas A&M, posted on X, that was a signature win for Marcus Freeman. She said, I was on the field when they lost to Ohio State last year. This was another fight to the finish, but the Irish got it done this time. Turning point? ? So my question to you guys, do you buy or sell last week's win over the Aggies as a turning point for Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame program?
I will buy it as it could be. I mean, if they lost this game, I don't think it would be a turning point towards the negative, but winning the game could be a turning point towards the positive. I mean, like, she's absolutely correct. I mean, they didn't win this game last year when they played against Ohio State. Now, nobody's going to say that Texas A&M is Ohio State, and I totally understand that. But this is the big game, and it was on the road. It was all of those things, and we talked about it in pregame, it being the biggest game of Marcus Freeman's career up to that point, and he won it. So absolutely, if this team does what we think they have a chance to do, we're all going to look back at game one, and we're going to be like, that's kind of where it started, man. That's where it got kicked off. That's where they got their confidence. And I think so I will tentatively buy it as a turning point.
I'm jealous Vince got to go first on this one, because I was basically going to say, like, I will buy it as a turning point if they accomplish what they're supposed to by the end of the season. If they go out and lose to, like, Purdue in a week or two, then you look back on, you say, well, that game was for nothing, right?
If they lose any game, to me, like, but your point is still taken. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that again, Notre Dame has to accomplish what they're supposed to. They have to stay on track. Think about it, every game, game by game, and not get caught up in the big picture. But, if Notre Dame goes to the playoff, if they're undefeated, get that 5 seed, win a home playoff game, win a quarterfinal game, and potentially make a run for it in the semifinal game, then I think everyone will look back on it and say, you remember that win that Marcus Freeman had at the beginning of the season and he was fired up in the tunnel? That was the turning point. That was a new era of Notre Dame football and a new chapter in the Marcus Freeman coaching career. So that to me is it's that book is still to be written, I guess, at the end of the day.
No, I mean it's way because there are a lot of people who do expect Notre Dame to go undefeated now this season because they beat Texas A&M. But like when you look at it, like in terms of, to her point, to Dinich's point about turning point, what's the previous biggest win Marcus Freeman had on the road in his 2+ years? Probably Duke last year, right? Because Duke was ranked with Riley Leonard. So big difference in the, in the environment and the amount of people. There were more than twice as many, probably almost 3 times as many people at Kyle Field last week compared to what there were for that Duke game. So this is definitely the biggest road game he's won. It's still an SEC team. It is still Texas A&M and a good head coach and Mike Elko, but it's at a very minimum, it is a road win over a ranked SEC team, and that obviously counts for a lot of people because, as we know, the college football world, I think, puts a lot on those SEC programs, whether they all completely deserve it or not. Let's talk a little bit of wide receivers. Fill in the blank. Here's what Notre Dame's wide receiver snap count looked like against Texas A&M. Beaux Collins, 59 snaps. Jaden Greathouse, 48. Chris Mitchell, 32. Jaden Thomas, 23. Jordan Faison, 20. Jaden Harrison, 9. And that means blank going forward.
To me, that doesn't mean much going forward because I think that, there was – I figured that Greathouse might be the guy to kind of lead in snaps overall, but it felt like that they had, more confidence in Beaux Collins being that guy because of the experience that he provides, right? Like he's played in some big games at Clemson. He's played in tough environments, and not to say that Greathouse hasn't, but Collins has just done it more. So I wasn't surprised by the end of the day to see Collins as the lead kind of snap count. And obviously, Greathouse was going to be closely behind because they've talked about how he's going to be a wide receiver that can play the slot, the outside, the field position. No matter where it is, Greathouse can play, right? I think with Faison being hurt, this also doesn't mean much as well because there's going to be a kind of reshuffling. I think KK is going to get
to that. We'll get to that in a minute.
Is going to get into the mix as well. So, for game one, for a game plan that was very specific to Texas A&M, I don't think that we should take much into this kind of snap count type situation. I think it's going to be, just like any offensive game plan, I think it's going to be dependent on, what the goals are for that game and what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that, Beaux Collins was that guy because he had the most experience.
It doesn't mean anything to me a whole lot. I mean, they probably, at certain points, they probably had their best blockers in the game as well, and I agree with Jesse. I think they trust Beaux Collins a lot, and I think he gave them a reason to trust them at the end of the game, and so he was in the game a bunch. And I think Greathouse is still going to get a bunch of snaps. He's going to be on the field a lot. Chris Mitchell's going to be on the field a lot. You know what I mean? So, unfortunately, we're not going to get a whole lot of clarity on it over the next few weeks because the next few weeks aren't all that competitive probably. So, we should probably compare the snaps between like A&M, Louisville, Florida State.
We will. It's going to be a thing. I've decided that it's going to be a thing this year because apparently people love the snap count stuff and I didn't realize it.
Okay.
So I am into the Pro Football Focus and that, that's where I got all the numbers from. So we're going to do some snap count stuff.
All right.
Season. We'll kind of compare different, like, are they up, are they down? And, just all that kind of stuff. So
it'd be nice when we have a couple of other data points as opposed to just one game.
Yeah. I just feel like, to me, it's pretty obvious that Beaux Collins is the guy, you said it, Vince, who they trust the most. And I think that there's some comfort with Riley Leonard. And you can just see, like, someone on the beat, I think it might have been Matt Freeman, like during training camp, tweeted some video of Beaux Collins when he was a high school kid camping at Notre Dame, what he looked like running his routes and just his body and the whole stuff versus what he looks like now as a grown man, basically 4 or 5 years later. But like you can just see that instinctually, because of all the games that he has played in and because of the specific position that he plays, that size with the bigger body, I feel like there's a lot of trust in Beaux Collins. And between Collins and Greathouse, the two guys with the most snaps, I think that those two guys are going to end up being the volume guys in this receiver core over the course of this season, where these other guys, they're going to make some plays here and there. That doesn't mean that they're not going to see the ball. But I just really feel like Collins and Greathouse is obviously a little bit younger, but he's got that big body and the versatility that Jesse talked about. So I just feel like those two guys, Collins and Greathouse, are going to end up being the volume reception guys for this team. And that's, it's still early, so we'll see exactly how it plays out. But that's kind of the vibe I got just watching, because again, like, so much of it comes down to trust. Who does the quarterback trust? Who does the offensive coordinator trust? Who does the position coach trust? And I think that those two guys are definitely at the top of the list right now. So, as Jesse mentioned, Jordan Faison is going to be out this week. He's got an ankle injury, unfortunately, that he suffered last week. Could be out for this week and next week. We will kind of wait and see how that plays out. But with him out, we're going to see more of redshirt freshman KK Smith.
It's a guy that we said, hey, he could possibly get in the game versus A&M. And he ended up not getting in the game, but we have a lot of confidence in KK. Micah Gilbert's another guy that I think we'll see this week. We had a plan to say, okay, we have 6 guys that we know at any point can be the starter, be on the field. 7th and 8th at that point was KK and Micah, and with Faison being down, KK will have a increased role. But there's a lot of confidence from Micah Gilbert on down to everybody in that room, and we'll see. I think we'll see him on Saturday for sure.
I mean, we're, as he kind of alluded to, we're probably pretty. If the game plays out the way we expect, we're going to see a lot of different guys out there. But what kind of factor, Vince, do you think that KK Smith could be?
Well, it's so hard to say just because of the way this game is going to go. I mean, he is a Jaden Harrison type of guy, right? So Jaden Harrison got 10 snaps in this game, had a couple catches, something along those lines. I think it'll be something similar while the first team is out there. Once they start putting in the 2s and stuff like that, obviously I think his workload increases and things like that. And I'm anxious to see what they do once they get the second guys in there. Are they still running the offense? Are they just running it up the mid? All of those things. And so, he'll have an impact, but I don't think it'll be huge.
Yeah, I think that the more majority of what you'll see out of KK Smith is when the starters are out there. I think you'll see him out there. How much of an impact he has, I don't think is going to be super, noticeable. I would say like he's maybe going to have a catch or two. I think the most you'll see out of KK Smith is potentially when Steve Angeli is quarterback, and that's assuming.
I was thinking the same thing.
He gets in there, so I think that's when you would want to see KK Smith, and I think that's naturally what's going to happen as well. Is some nice quick slants, some check downs. Letting KK Smith kind of operate in space with Steve Angeli at quarterback.
Vince's face was caught in a yawn, frozen on the screen there.
Oh, no.
And it was hilarious.
Whoops. I tried to stop the camera.
Tried to close it out. Yeah, that's right.
It hit me fast and hard.
Yeah. I'll just I won't say a whole lot because I think you guys both pretty much covered it. I do think that his biggest impact is like once Steve Angeli and some of the 2s are in there. That's probably when he's going to have his most opportunities. But the guy is a speedy guy. So again, like I was saying with Chris Mitchell earlier, this is a game where Chris Mitchell's speed should really be pretty obvious, and maybe some deep opportunities there. It could happen with KK Smith, depending on how many early reps he gets in out there as well. Mitch Jett hit 3 field goals last week. A couple of 46-yarders included. What's your confidence in him after seeing that performance last week?
I mean, to me, your confidence has to be 10 out of 10. He's in a hostile environment, pressure situations, and the guy was nails. And, I love this question because I felt like we didn't nearly talk about him enough or bring him up during the week. He hit some critical field goals, especially when Notre Dame needed to respond to get some points on the board. And again, he looked like a seasoned vet out there, right? He didn't look like the moment was too big. I thought he executed perfectly. And, the kicking game becomes magnified in close games like that. And I think that's what they're going to need, especially as they get into maybe against, Georgia Tech, Louisville, USC, into the playoffs, etc. Like, you need a kicker that you can rely on. And so right now, I'm 10 out of 10 confident. He hasn't shown me otherwise. And I was really impressed with the way he was able to stay composed in that environment and hit some big kicks.
My confidence level of Mitch Jett going into the game was about a 9.5, and now it's a 10. So
wow.
I know he didn't look the greatest in practice, but his in-game stats are unbelievable, and I don't see how putting on a different helmet would change that. So I had a lot of confidence in him being a gamer. He's proved it in SEC play. Again, not that necessarily matters because you're a kicker, and
right.
But the environment does. The environment matters, and he's been in some hostile environments before. So yeah. I had a lot of confidence in him going in, and he just proved me right. So I appreciate that. So I'm bumping it to a 10.
I'm just going to be honest. Mine was probably a 6 because basically the lingering impression that I had is what we saw of him at the end of the spring and a little bit in practice. And he wasn't, especially in the spring,
it's terrible.
He wasn't very accurate. Yeah, he was just downright. And that's, again, I know that he's got a body of work, and we saw all his numbers from South Carolina, but it is a change of scenery, and it's a different operation, and the whole thing. And I personally, I just want, has this guy lost it? What's going on? But I would say it is definitely a 10 right now after seeing that last week when we were able to bang a couple of 46-yarders and go 3 for 3 and be able to put the game away at the end, because you could say it was a meaningless field goal, but it made it a 2-possession game. And it made it virtually impossible for Texas A&M, or completely impossible.
That was far from meaningless to me because one thing can go wrong. You can throw a pick, you could fumble the ball, and you want to be up 2 possessions, period, end of discussion. So that was far from meaningless to me. I think that was the most pressure-packed field goal he had, in my opinion.
And there were people, you kind of heard it, where people were like, well, do you put the field goal team out there? Do you risk a block and all that stuff? There's just as much of a risk of a block punt if that's what you're going to do instead, or a fumbled snap on any given snap, no matter what. There's risk on any play. So I had no problem with running the kicker out there and doing it the way they did it.
Especially if you have the confidence in them that we do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you absolutely let him kick it.
Yeah. And someone did say, it might have been on the message, again, between the message boards and our chat, during the show, the fact that Marty Biaggi, he's got 2 new kickers this year, place kicker and a punter, new holder, new long snapper, new short snapper. All the operations are completely different, and they were pretty sharp out there Saturday night.
Agreed. It was fun to watch.
So I'm gonna work a punt question. Over under 1.5 punts for James Rendell against Northern Illinois.
I'll go over, 1 for the starters, 1 for the backups. I think you'll naturally get 1 maybe towards the end of the game, and I know Vince is going to be mad at me, but I don't think the offense is going to be immaculate and score on every drive. I want them to, but I don't know if it's going to happen. So I lean more towards the side of air, and I like I said, kind of 1 for each group. I think at the end of the day. So give me the over.
I'm taking the under for James Rendell, but I'm going to take the over for actual punts in the game, because remember, there's a 30-year-old who's probably going to get a chance to punt in this game.
Ah, good one. I didn't think about it that way.
Vince hitting us with the back alley
the
answer.
old captain, Mr.
Right.
Goins.
Yep.
I didn't think about that.
Goings is going to get a punt, and I think he's going to get a couple, actually, because the second and third, like I think they're going to end up with 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and so eventually Northern Illinois is going to be able to stop them. And
are you telling me it's going to be CJ Carr time or Kenny Minchie time?
I'm not saying either one. It depends on how they want to do it. But I think they find a way to get 3 on the field, and I don't know that they're going to be able to lead scoring drives. If Northern Illinois puts their backups in, then you still have, the differentiation of talent, and Notre Dame still may score. But I'm still taking the over, but I just don't think it's going to be Rendell.
I can't see it being CJ Carr out there. Can you imagine what the reaction is going to be if you throw CJ Carr out there and he leads a touchdown drive right away?
Yes.
I'm not saying that's why you're not putting him on the field, but I just don't see him going.
That's all we'll talk about.
I know. Northern Illinois had a 60-yard pass play and a 60-yard run play last week against Western Illinois. Over under 20 yards for the longest play they will have this weekend against Notre Dame.
This one's tough. I'll take the over. I think they might accidentally get 20 yards, so I'll take the over.
I gotta go over as well. No defense is perfect. They're bound to hit some sort of busted play, maybe trick play that they've been scheming up for their first drive of the season, so they can maybe find some points. First drive of the game, not season. But it's just that'd be a lot to ask of a defense. So I'm just gonna go over because I think naturally that's what's gonna happen.
I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna say under. At least when the starters are out there. So maybe I'm cheating a little bit. I'm not going to rule out something to happen late in the game when you've got some second and third string guys out there. But I'll say when the primaries are out there, I'm going to go under 20 yards as longest play that Northern Illinois hits. Fill in the blank. Northern Illinois refers to games against Power 4 teams as Boneyard games. They have 18 all-time what they call Boneyard Wins, dating back to 1983.
I think it's a pretty cool concept at the end of the day, right? When you are a MAC school, you're not in the Power 4, Power 5, you got to have some external motivation. So when you go into a game like Notre Dame, you should never think that you're going to lose. And I think they definitely don't think that. And I think they know that they're the underdog and their coach is going to sort of buy into that. And that's why you have something like the Boneyard type situation. So you get that recognition of going in and upsetting someone, because that's what it is. Boneyard wins are just upset wins at the end of the day. So I think it's a cool concept. I think it's something that's fun to get the players, to get some of that extra motivation at the end of the day.
It's freaking great. When we were going around to different MAC schools and stuff like that, they all had some sort of something that depicted their Power 4 wins.
Oh,
and
that's probably how they rate themselves, right?
Oh, 100%.
It's like Boston College, for example, last year to open the season.
It's like, look, we can play with the big boys. You know what I mean? Come here, you get to play with the big boys. That kind of a thing. And so I dig it, man. I think a lot of these, the Group of 5 teams, they're extremely creative with a lot of the things that they do, and I appreciate it, and I like it a lot.
Creative was actually going to be the word that I was going to use. Very creative to go in this Boneyard Wins, because they're obviously the Huskies, so you got Boneyard and that whole connection. And you're right. Like anytime I do, like when I'm preparing for a basketball game and you get the game notes and Notre Dame is playing one of these, like a MAC level school or something like that, there is always part of their notes that says, first what the current coach has done against like the group of, 5 group of, or Power 5, Power 4 type programs. And then of course, something like this as well that dates back, like what they've done all time. I mean, that's how they measure themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of how they sell themselves to recruits. Like you can come here and we're still going to compete with the big boys and girls.
Yep, we'll put you on that stage, and it'll be competitive. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so we've come to the part of the show. I don't know how this is going to go. I want to have the Pat McAfee conversation here because it's the 3 of us, and I think that we're going to get some distinctly varying opinions on this. Do you buy or sell Pat McAfee being good for College game day? And we're going to start with the chin rubber there, Vince D'Addario.
You just want to start with the negative guy. I see where you're going with this. I think that my answer is going to surprise you, though. I think it's actually good for game day because he has a hell of an audience. People like to watch him and his antics. I will say that I'm 50-50 on McAfee. I enjoy some of the stuff that he does. Some of it's over the top, and I get annoyed. But I think it's good for College game day, and I think it's good for college football. And just ask the Texas A&M kid who finally hit a field goal. It was good for him. He made $50,000.
Yeah, and they let him. He got a re-kick, too.
Yeah, and I will say this. I think that segment is friggin' awesome. I love the field goal kicking segment because
gee, I wonder why.
Well, you need to get kicking's easy. That's all I'll say. People think kicking is easy, and it takes a hell of a lot of work to be a good kicker. And I think that's fantastic. So I actually like his show. He's very upfront with the fact that he's not an expert, that kind of stuff. And
Vince, you're just ruining this whole question. Like, I was not expecting you to go this direction.
Like I said, 50% of the stuff he does annoys the crap out of me, but I do find him entertaining at times. So I think it's good for football.
I buy it because he brings a different dynamic to that set, and it's something that none of them have, right? And I think that allows them to enjoy themselves more and bring kind of a lighter side to college football. It's not all about
Sabin.
X's and O's.
He sits right next to Sabin.
And he's the polar opposite.
Exactly. But guess what? Nick Saban loves the guy.
I think he is the definition of the fan that a lot of people have in them at the end of the day. He brings out the fan in a lot of people, right? And I think, hearing him sing, what was it? Take Me Home, West Virginia last week, and then at the SEC championship last year when he starts singing one team's fight song and then, stands on the table and completely, changes direction and that sort of stuff. Pat McAfee is authentic. He's true to himself. Yeah. He's going to give you the same thing every week. And again, I like the diversity that he brings to a set that is relatively, outside of Lee Corso, it's very kind of buttoned up. This is how you're going to do things, and
it's definitely
analysts
they all keep their shirts on.
That's like when I watched him take the shirt off, it's like, do we really need to see McAfee take the shirt? But at the same time, I was like, this guy's a punter, and it's like
and then he puts his arm around
Sabin. Shape,
he's got no shirt on.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where it goes over the line for me.
It is. I did find it very curious the way they have that table set or the desk set up. McAfee sits right in the middle. Like
he's like the host,
he's like the center square. Yeah, it's like McAfee's in the middle and Sabin is next to him. And then you got Reese Davis, you got Fowler and Desmond sitting on the extreme outsides on opposite ends. I was really struck by the fact, because usually you would just put the host, like Reese Davis would sit in the middle, then everyone else is basically and that's kind of how you would go. But they've got Davis sitting off to the side. And I mean, I agree obviously with a good chunk. Like, I think people forget that part of the business is being able to entertain. And Pat McAfee obviously entertains, and he does keep that set loose. He keeps Nick Saban a little bit looser. Saban's on his show during the week with him as well. Herb Street has said he was getting a little bit burned out, maybe as long as he'd been on game day with just all the different stuff. But when McAfee came on, he's the reason that he stayed on. So
wow,
I think it's pretty cool. And again, he's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but the guy was an NFL punter. And I think that's important to remember. The guy was a punter. Like, how many punters go on to any kind of media career?
Yeah.
And he has turned this thing. He's just kind of put it all on himself and built this little mini empire. And it's led to not only his own show being on ESPN every day, but obviously being part of game day as well. So I think it's pretty incredible, just the path that he's gone on to get there. This obviously wasn't on game day, but I was I was texting you guys when they were in Ireland a couple of weeks ago in week 0, and he was in that pub with Sabin sitting next to him in the pub, and the man was just an animal with the Guinness. They would bring him a glass of Guinness, like a full pint of Guinness, and he wasn't just, like taking a drink or two, set it down. Every glass they brought him was just straight down the chute, and he did 6 in the first hour of the show, just like that, straight down the chute. For what I understand, he had to step off the set for a little bit and kind of recollect himself. But
well, they were saying too.
I mean, if they would have let us do that on our old show back in the day, Vince, like I wouldn't have minded that on a Friday afternoon.
He just takes it to another level, though. He was practically blacked out, man. Like
there was a guy from an Irish football club sitting next to him. They start the interview, and like 5 minutes into the interview, he reintroduces himself to the guy. But you know what? The next day, they're doing game day, and he's
back to normal.
He's back to normal.
You wouldn't know he just
never happened the day, but yeah, it's like who knows what happened after that show was over either.
You can rally.
Oh my goodness.
It was funny listening to him talk about, because he was in West Virginia the night before the college game day at Texas A&M, and he said he got in so late he had to sleep on the bus waiting to get up to do college game day at Texas A&M. And he said, Texas A&M were practicing or doing their, like rally cries or cheers the night before, and he said from the bus, like he could hear it was waking him up. So it's like, to me, the guy is an animal. He's just all over the place, doesn't need much rest, can drink all these beers. He's kind of envious of him. He's like getting older, and he's not slowing down by any means. So,
all right, game props. Let's do some player props. Riley Leonard's official over/under 205.5 yards. And
in the air,
205.5 passing yards and 1.5 touchdown passes. Those
over.
Yeah, over. I agree. I think there's going to be an emphasis on throwing the football.
I think so too. I'm not entirely confident because, again, like last week skewed me a little bit, but I think that he's going to get over on both of these as well. His rushing yards, 42.5 is the number.
Even if he's not running the ball a ton, I still think he could get a couple big ones, right? And so I don't know. Naturally, I think the competitor in him is going to want to run some of these, but at the end of the day, I think they're going to be like, listen, you don't need to run. You don't need to take extra hits. Let's focus on maybe passing the ball. So I'm going to talk myself into the under on this one.
Well, I agree with you, Jesse, but to be contrarian, I'll take the over. Because if he just breaks one run like that,
that's what I'm worried about. It's just one big one.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm seeing is really all it's going to take is probably one run, and he'll run past, the 90%.
And he'll get yelled at, and he'll be like, "Okay, I won't run anymore."
That's right. So I've got to go over on that as well. Jeremiah Love, rushing yards, 67.5.
Over.
Way over.
I think he's going to hit a 100-yard game.
I think so too. I think
there's a chance both him and Price hit 100 yards.
I wouldn't doubt it. Price doesn't have a number on FanDuel. It was only Leonard and Love for the rushing. Receiving numbers: Jaden Greathouse, 31.5. Over. Yep. He had 26 last week. Beaux Collins, 48.5.
I think he's going to get his fair share too. I think that's really, 3-4 catches. And again, if this offense is going into a little, at least the first half and maybe the third quarter, I'd like to say the over as well.
Yep. Take it. Book it.
Only thing that makes me question it is, again, like who they're playing and the fact that you might see some other guys get more involved in the pass game, whether it's Chris Mitchell or Thomas or whoever it happens to be. But I'm over on Collins' number as well. The line right now, as we speak, Notre Dame favored by 27.5, and their point total 37.5. Northern Illinois' point total 7.5. The over/under for the game is 44.5. So keep those numbers in mind as we do our predictions. Who wants to go first? Jesse?
I'll go first because I don't think mine has been made official yet. You two are just going to regurgitate whatever you put out in the article earlier.
Has that been posted? Are we out there?
It has been posted. It is out there.
All right.
I'm going to go Notre Dame 44, Northern Illinois 0. I think that they're going to pitch a complete shutout. I don't think it matters defensively who is out there for Notre Dame because we said this earlier in the week. They rotate so many people that they already are getting in second and third string type of guys, right? So I think we might potentially see some fourth string, but those guys are going to be – those are guys who could be playing for Northern Illinois at the end of the day, right? And so I just think that Notre Dame is going to handle business. I don't see them – listen, if they give Texas A&M's offense fits, then they're going to give this offense even more fits. And I'm confident to say that Notre Dame defense kind of not handed Texas A&M some points, but they had some boneheaded penalties early on that led to some points for Texas A&M. And if they can clean that up defensively, I don't see why Northern Illinois should score in this game. So I think they cover. I think they hit the over on their total points. And I think Northern Illinois is definitely under in a 44-0 game.
I just have to ask you, Jesse, because we talked about the odds on this yesterday. Plus 430, the odds for Notre Dame to get a shutout. Did you lay something on that?
Yeah, I have 100 on Notre Dame to cover, 29.5, and 25 on the defense to put on a shutout.
Wow. 29.5 is what you got?
I took an alternate spread to get like plus money on
to get a little bit more money. Gotcha. Okay. Vince, your prediction?
I'm taking over all of that because I feel like my prediction is 49-10. And so if I'm going to say it's 49-10, then that's over for Northern Illinois on points. Yep. It's over for Notre Dame on points. It's over for the combined points, and Notre Dame's covering. So I have to stick true to my word, right? Because that's what I think is going to happen. So I think points are going to be easy to come by for Notre Dame. I think the 10, probably comes later on in the game. I agree that this defense shouldn't let Northern Illinois score while the first team is out there. But I think Notre Dame subs in before Northern Illinois does, and maybe they get a touchdown. Maybe they get a field goal. You know what I mean? So, I think they're going to score, but I don't think it'll be by very much. So 49-10 is my prediction.
See, I still think that it's early in the season and Al Golden's stubborn enough. I don't think you're going to see Notre Dame backups until maybe the fourth quarter.
I think
the defense.
You're going to see backups when Marcus Freeman says, Al, put the backups
in. That's also fair.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to try to protect the shutout and that kind of thing if it's at that point. But yeah, I do have 45-10 Notre Dame winning, so I am over on all those. Now, I'm not completely even confident that Northern Illinois is actually going to score a touchdown, but I feel like I think this one, how this game goes is largely going to sort of determine how I'm going to predict the next couple of games, basically. You know what I mean? If Northern Illinois doesn't find the end zone, and if Northern Illinois does get shut out, I think that's not quite the statement as holding A&M to 13 points, but it's going to be a pretty big statement of its own. So I just think a lot of guys are going to play in this game, obviously, and I think it's going to be a big offensive day and a turnover-filled day for Northern Illinois and their quarterback, Ethan Hampton.
I'm trying to see if I can find, usually on FanDuel, there's a winning margin, and I would definitely take Notre Dame to win by like 40 plus, but I can't find it anywhere.
All right.
Sorry to let everyone down.
That's okay. Well, that's going to do it for this show. IB countdown to kickoff. Hit the like button. I guess, we just ask that you hit the like button. There's nobody in the live chat like usual. And of course, if you're listening on your podcast platform, give us a review, rate us, and of course, follow the podcast, follow it, subscribe to it, the whole thing. We appreciate you. Post-game show coming up after the game. Notre Dame and Northern Illinois, of course, kickoff at 3:30 Eastern time. Post-game show after, and we'll be back, Vince and I, on Monday with IB countdown to kickoff. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game, and we will talk to you then on IB Nation Sports Talk.